Good evening from New York. 2010's lame duck session of Congress produced a string of victories for President Obama and the Democrats. But now that the holidays are over and a new eager freshman class of Tea Party Republicans in Congress is ready to roll back as many of President Obama's signature reforms as possible, their number one target is the new health care law. Republicans have already scheduled a vote to repeal it on January 12th in the House. Democrats in the Senate tried to reason with Speaker-elect John Boehner in a letter. They released the letter to the press today, thereby assuring that Boehner won't take it at all seriously. The letter tells him what he already knows. If House Republicans move forward with a repeal of the health care law that threatens consumer benefits like the donut hole fix, we will block it in the Senate. This proposal deserves a chance to work. It is too important to be treated as collateral damage in a partisan mission to repeal health care. New York Democratic Congressman Joe Crowley tried to trap would-be health care repealers last November by daring them to reject the government-run congressional health care plan for their families in a letter co-signed by 3 other House Democrats. You cannot enroll in the very kind of coverage that you want for yourselves and then turn around and deny it to Americans who don't happen to be members of Congress. Illinois freshman Republican Joe Walsh has risen to Crowley's challenge over his wife's objection. She has a pre-existing medical condition and will be forced to find a new plan in the open market. Walsh also plans to cut Social Security and Medicare and will vote against raising the debt ceiling. He told the New York Times recently, quote, "I'm going to D.C. absolutely prepared to lose in 2 years. Nothing, but nothing, makes a member of Congress more dangerous than a willingness to lose re-election." Joining me now are the 2 Joes, Republican Congressman-elect Joe Walsh and Democratic Congressman Joe Crowley. Congressman-elect Walsh, tell me about this conversation you must have had with your wife about you're going to reject the congressional health care plan on your principle of opposing government-run health care, but your wife has a pre-existing condition and could really use that plan.
Good to be here, Lawrence. Actually, I made this pledge to reject the congressional health care and the retirement benefits back in January when Congress was attempting to exempt themselves from the impact, from the effects of Obamacare. It's something I believe in. It's something I've believed in a year. I think we were sent here to be different. I think that the American people are sick of politicians on both sides of the aisle who act differently than the American people. I don't want the American people to have to pick up the tab for my health care. That's not an easy decision. But a lot of Americans these days have to make very difficult decisions when it comes to their health care. I'm going to have to go out into the private marketplace and find the health care for myself and my wife. I don't want to burden the American taxpayer. And with all due respect to Congressman Crowley, it wasn't his challenge I accepted. This is something that I've been talking about now for almost a year.
Congressman Crowley, 2-year challenge. The truth of it is the congressional plan is like most employer plans. You actually pay into it money right out of your pocket. You make premium payments. You make co-payments. Your employer also helps with the premium. It's a standard employer-provided style program in which people think it's just free for senators and congressmen, which it isn't. So just to get the right description of it out there. But, hey, so much for your challenge. You know, looks like Joe Walsh is willing to stick with his principle here. Does that surprise you?
Well, thank you, Lawrence. But let me just say that I appreciate Mr. Walsh and his position, at least he's being honest and being true about it. The reality is that most of the people who are saying they're rejecting the government subsidized, because working for the Congress, we are subsidized by the government in terms we do pay into it, as you so well explained. But others who have said they're also going to forego the congressional health benefits, they have a plan B. One is a retired Air Force colonel. He's going to have the Veterans Administration administer his health care. One is a former and retired state legislator. He's going to have state benefits. Others are independently wealthy. I don't know what Mr. Walsh's situation is, But I can say to you that what this really is about is not about individuals and their health care coverage. It is about a message to the American people. Who stands with them and who doesn't? Who wants to see this health care coverage seen through, and who wants to repeal it? Mr. Walsh ran against the bill that we passed that would deny people who have previous existing conditions, like his wife, the ability to get health insurance. We're trying to unravel that. He would undo or unravel a bill that would require insurance companies to pay 80% of the money they have on the benefits given to their clients. They would like to unravel that. I would not, and my colleagues, Democrats, would not like to see that unraveled.
Congressman-elect Walsh, you see the Democrats are isolating certain very popular provisions of the health care bill that they passed, including the so-called donut hole provision, which is part of the Medicare prescription drug program. It makes it much cheaper for people at certain income levels to get their prescription drugs under Medicare. That's the kind of thing that the Democrats think Republicans are going to be afraid to repeal, and so you will all stand accused of voting to repeal that item, along with many others, if you vote to repeal the entire bill. It sounds like you're willing to cast that vote, but do you think the majority of your Republicans in the House are willing to cast that vote with you?
Lawrence, I really do. In speaking for my freshman class, look, I think we all realize we were sent to Washington in many cases on repeal. It's an issue I talked about every day in my campaign. We would hold health care town halls almost on a weekly basis. I think the polls clearly support repeal. I can tell you anecdotally in my district, my small businesses in my district are scared to death of the cost of Obamacare. Seniors have real concerns about the Medicare cuts that are in this bill. Look, the proof's in the pudding. We were sent here to repeal Obamacare. We believe the American people are behind us, and it's our mission. We would disappoint the folks that sent us here if we didn't work really steadfastly to do that.
Joe Crowley, this vote on January 12th is probably a vote that you Democrats are looking forward to. You're going to get a lot of Republicans recorded as voting against the Obama health care bill, and that may overall create a good impression for some Republican-based voters out there, but it does include, as the donut hole provision shows, some very specific, very popular items that you guys are going to be able to run 30-second commercials on in the next election saying, you know, this congressman voted against this, he voted against that. It looks like you guys are welcoming this vote on January 12th, aren't you?
Well, you know, it's going to sound crazy. I think this is not about the politics. This is about the people. This is about something that's going to help people today who cannot afford their own insurance. I find it mind-boggling, Lawrence, that this is the first issue that they want to go after. They want to take away something that we've given to the American people, or an opportunity for the American people to afford health care insurance. What about the economy? What about jobs? That's what this election was about. We got it. Democrats got it. We lost the House because we didn't get it initially. We didn't hear it clear enough. People want us to address the issue of the economy and jobs. They don't want us to take away benefits that we have now provided for the American people.
Joe Walsh, before you go, you're talking about planning on living in your office in Washington, D.C. You're going to be paid $175,000. Is that, with that income, can you not afford a place to live in Washington?
Now, you know, Lawrence, again, it's important to me to live in my office. Look, I think, for better or for worse, and I think for better, there's a real change of culture coming to Washington. The American people are sick and tired of politicians who look and sound different than they do and don't understand their interests. I'm going to sleep in my office. I'm going to be home all the time listening to my constituents. And, you know, when we talk about jobs, look, small business isn't hiring people right now because of the uncertainty in the climate. And one of the big reasons there's such uncertainty is because of the future cost of Obamacare.
Joe Walsh, how many people back in your district are sleeping in their offices? Do you think that's going to get you somehow closer to their experience?
Government subsidy.
I live at home. I don't live in Washington.
All right, the two Joes. We're going to have to leave it there. I feel like I'm back in my old Boston neighborhood. I had an elementary school classmate named Joe Crowley, and I don't know how many Joe Walshes I knew. Congressman Joe Crowley, Democrat of New York. Congressman-elect Joe Walsh, Republican of Illinois. Thank you both.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you.
Thanks, Lawrence.